Webster, step over here, please.
Excuse me, what is this about?
Watch closely. This is Daquan Jamal Webster, a DoorDash driver operating out of Charlotte, North Carolina. You're witnessing the exact moment his carefully constructed scheme begins to collapse.
The orders you've been marking delivered without dropping the food onto your customers. We have everything.
I have been a Dasher for 18 months.
We have the customer complaint logs.
This is absurd. You cannot just stand there and call me a thief. I work hard for...
Within 72 hours of this conversation in the driveway, Daquan Jamal Webster would be sitting in an interview room at the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office, watching a detective slide a single sheet of paper across the table. On that sheet was a number, 11%. The other number on that page was 0.3%. One was his. The other belonged to every other DoorDash driver in the Charlotte metro area. 200 customers, $48,000, 8 months of food picked up from restaurants and never delivered to a single door. The investigation that brought 3 officers to his apartment had been running for 6 weeks, and it had all started with a piece of software no driver had ever seen flag a single name. Before we go any further, I want to know, how many times have you ordered food from your phone in the last month? Drop the number in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, fix that right now. This channel covers cases the local news never touches every single week. Daquan Jamal Webster was born on the 4th of October, 1995, at Carolina's Medical Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. His mother, Renee Webster, was 22 years old at the time, working second shift at a Bojangles on Beatty's Ford Road. His father, Marcus Webster, was 19, working at a tire shop off Statesville Avenue, and would be in and out of Daquan's life for the next decade before disappearing for good in 2007. Renee raised her son in a 2-bedroom apartment on Tom Hunter Road, on the north end of the city, in a complex called Sterling Point, where the rent was $620 a month, and the air conditioning worked when the maintenance man felt like fixing it. He was the kind of kid teachers remembered, quiet, polite, watchful. A second-grade progress report from Hidden Valley Elementary described him as, quote, eager to help, careful with his work, slow to speak, but thoughtful when he does. He had a paper route at 12 years old, distributing copies of the Charlotte Observer through the apartment complex parking lots before sunrise. By 13, he was mowing lawns for cash on the side, using a rusted Toro push mower his uncle had given him for his birthday. The neighbors paid him $15 a yard. He kept the money in a coffee can in his bedroom closet, and at the end of every summer, he would count it and hand most of it to his mother for school clothes. He graduated from Vance High School in 2013 with a 2.8 grade point average. He had played junior varsity football for 1 season as a sophomore, before a torn meniscus ended that, and he had been on the yearbook staff for 2 years, mostly running the camera at football games. His senior year guidance counselor, a woman named Patricia Owens, wrote in his college recommendation letter that Daquan was, quote, reliable in a way most teenagers are not, with a quiet self-discipline that will carry him further than his grades suggest. He applied to Central Piedmont Community College and was accepted into their automotive technology program, intending to become an ASE-certified mechanic. He lasted 3 semesters. His mother had been diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer in the spring of 2014, and Daquan dropped out of CPCC that fall to work 2 jobs to help cover her chemotherapy copays. He took a position as a stocker at the Food Lion on University City Boulevard, working 4 in the morning until noon, then drove for a flooring installation company in the afternoons, hauling carpet rolls and pad into new construction houses in University City. He was earning approximately $28,000 a year. He moved back into the Sterling Point apartment with his mother. He gave her $400 a month for the rent. Renee Webster's cancer went into remission in 2016. By then, Daquan was 21 years old and had been working full-time for nearly 3 years. He met a young woman named Ashanti Burgess at a cookout in the parking lot of his apartment complex in the summer of 2017. She was a dental assistant at a practice on Sharon Amity Road. They started dating that August, moved in together by Christmas of the following year, and had a daughter, Layla, in March of 2020. Layla was born 9 days before the state of North Carolina shut down for COVID-19. Within a month, Daquan had been laid off from the flooring company. New home construction had paused, and the contractor had no work for him. He kept his job at Food Lion for another 6 weeks before that store reduced hours across the board. By May of 2020, he was unemployed, with a 2-month-old infant, a partner who was still on unpaid maternity leave, and a rent payment of $1,175 due on the first of every month at a townhouse on Galloway Avenue. In June of 2020, he signed up to drive for DoorDash. He was approved within 48 hours. He was 25 years old, the proud father of a baby girl, with a clean criminal record, a 2013 Nissan Sentra with 132,000 miles on it, and a smartphone with a cracked screen. He started his first delivery on a Tuesday evening, picking up a cookout tray order from the cookout on East Independence Boulevard and driving it 3 miles to a woman in Plaza Midwood. The tip was $4. The base pay was $3. He made $7 on that delivery, and he came home and told Ashanti that he was going to make this work. For the first 18 months, he made it work the right way. He was, by every measure DoorDash tracked, a good driver. His average customer rating sat at 4.86 out of 5. His on-time delivery percentage was 96%. He worked the dinner rush from 4 in the afternoon until 10 at night, 6 days a week, sometimes 7. He kept a small spiral notebook in the passenger seat of the Sentra, where he tracked his gas mileage and his earnings. He cleared, on a good week, between $600 and $700 before taxes. After fuel, insurance, and the wear and tear on a car that was already past its useful life, he was bringing home maybe $2,000 a month. Rent took half of it. Diapers, formula, and electricity took most of the rest. By the spring of 2022, he was driving for DoorDash full-time, supplementing it with Uber Eats and Instacart, and he and Ashanti were still arguing every Thursday night about which bill to pay first. That trust DoorDash placed in him, the trust that he would drive the food to the address on the order, was about to be tested in a way the company had not yet learned to detect. DoorDash, at the time Webster signed up, was the largest food delivery platform in the United States. Headquartered in San Francisco, the company processed approximately 2 million orders a day across the country, partnering with more than 350,000 restaurants, and supporting a network of more than 2 million independent contract drivers, called Dashers, in cities from Anchorage to Miami. In Charlotte alone, on any given Friday night, an estimated 4,500 Dashers were on the road at once. The mechanics of a delivery, as Webster knew them, were simple. The Dasher app would ping with a delivery offer, the name of the restaurant, the distance to the customer, and the guaranteed payout, including any tip the customer had pre-attached. The driver could accept or decline. If he accepted, the app guided him to the restaurant, generated a digital handoff with the kitchen staff, and then routed him to the customer's address. At the customer's location, the driver had 2 options. He could hand the food directly to the customer, requiring a signature or a verbal confirmation. Or, and this was the option 98% of customers in the post-pandemic era selected, he could leave the food at the door. The leave-at-door option had been introduced quietly in 2020 in the early weeks of the pandemic as a contactless delivery solution. By 2022, it had become the default. The driver pulled up to the address, removed the food from his insulated bag, placed it on the doormat or front step, opened the DoorDash app, and took a photograph of the food on the ground. The photograph was uploaded to the system. The driver tapped the green delivered button. The app sent the customer a push notification. Your order has been delivered. The driver was paid. The job was over. The entire system, every single step of it, after the food left the restaurant, ran on an honor system. The photograph the driver uploaded proved only that he had placed a bag of food on a doormat somewhere. It did not prove the doormat belonged to the customer. The GPS location of the phone at the moment the delivered button was tapped was supposed to match the customer's address within a small radius, but the system tolerated significant drift to account for apartment complexes, gated communities, and bad cell coverage. A driver who pulled into the parking lot of a customer's apartment building, sat in his car, and tapped delivered would pass the GPS check even if he never opened his door. A driver who drove to the correct street, took a picture of a stranger's porch, and then drove away with the food would pass every automated check the platform ran. DoorDash knew this. The company also knew, from internal data accumulated since the launch of Leave at Door, that the overwhelming majority of drivers were honest. The median Dashers did not receive complaint rate was 0.3%, 3 complaints per 1,000 deliveries. The company had decided, as a matter of policy, that the cost of those complaints was a small price to pay for the speed and convenience of contactless delivery. The complaint resolution policy was customer service first. If a customer reported their food missing, an automated chatbot apologized, credited the customer's account for the full amount of the order plus tip, and dispatched a replacement order from a different driver at the company's expense. It was, at scale, an extraordinarily expensive promise. The company absorbed the losses as a cost of doing business, and in 8 months of 2023, Daquan Webster would take more than $48,000 of that promise straight off the top. The first stolen order was placed on a Wednesday night, the 22nd of February, 2023, at 7:04 p.m. The customer was a man named Curtis Huang, a 31-year-old software engineer who lived in a townhouse off Park Road in the South Park area. The order was from a Thai restaurant called Lang Van, Pad CEW, 2 spring rolls, a Thai iced tea. The total, with tip, was $28.41. Webster picked the food up at 7:19. He drove toward Park Road. He was hungry. He had skipped lunch. 3 blocks from Huang's address, he pulled into the parking lot of a Walgreens. He sat in the Sentra for 40 seconds. He opened the DoorDash app. He selected the Leave at Door option. He took a photograph of the brown paper takeout bag sitting on the asphalt next to his front tire. He tapped Delivered. He drove home. He ate the Pad CU sitting on the couch next to Ashanti, who was nursing Layla, and he told her the customer had tipped him an extra $10 in cash and had insisted he take the food home. Curtis Huang opened a support ticket 22 minutes later. The chatbot apologized. His account was credited $28.41. A second order was dispatched from a different Dasher and arrived at his door at 8:46 p.m. Huang ate. Huang gave the second driver a 5-star rating. Huang never thought about it again. The second one took 11 days. He had been thinking about it. He had also, in that 11 days, paid the electricity bill, watched the daycare invoice arrive in the mail, and listened to Ashanti tell him, with tears on her cheeks, that her hours had been cut at the dental practice. On the night of the 5th of March, he stole again. A burger order from Cookout on Sharon Amity Road, $18.40, destined for a woman in University City. He drove to her apartment complex. He parked outside the wrong building. He took the photograph against a brick wall. He drove home. He ate the burger. In the 3rd week of March, he stole 4 orders. In the 1st week of April, 6. By the end of May, he had stolen 41. He had developed a method. He learned which neighborhoods had the worst cell coverage, which apartment complexes had the most confusing building layouts, which restaurants packaged their food in nondescript brown bags he could resell at a discount through a Facebook marketplace alt account he had set up under the name M. Sanders. He learned that any order over $40 was disproportionately likely to trigger a phone call from a real DoorDash employee, so he stuck to orders under $35. He learned to vary his theft pattern. Never 2 from the same restaurant in the same night. Never 2 from the same neighborhood in the same week. He learned to take photographs at slightly different angles each time, against slightly different backgrounds. He learned that the DoorDash app never, ever asked him for a verification photograph of an actual customer's door. The theft accelerated. By July, he was running 3 or 4 scams a night, embedded in 20 or 30 legitimate deliveries. The pattern was deliberately uneven. He pulled in, on top of his legitimate earnings, between $800 and $1,200 extra dollars a week, partly through the food he ate, partly through the small ecosystem of resold meals he had built on Facebook Marketplace. He paid down the past due balance on the Duke Energy account. He caught up on the daycare. He bought Ashanti a refurbished MacBook Air for her birthday in August so she could finish the dental hygienist certification she had been working toward at night. He told her he had picked up extra catering shifts on the weekend. The people he stole from never saw him. They saw a notification on their phone that said the food had arrived. They opened the door to an empty mat. They opened a support ticket. They got their money back. They got new food. They went on with their evening. 200 separate customers across 8 months in a city of 900,000 people, each one absorbed back into the platform's promise and forgotten. No one in his life noticed. Ashanti thought he was working harder. His mother thought he had finally caught a break. No one noticed. No one checked. Quick question. When your food gets delivered and the app says it's at your door, do you actually look out the window to check, or do you just trust the notification? Tell me in the comments, and if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the button. This is the kind of story that never makes the evening news. The catalyst was not a customer. It was not a coworker. It was not a tip line. It was a piece of software in a server farm somewhere in Northern California that nobody, including Daquan Webster, had ever thought about. DoorDash's internal fraud analytics team, a group of 11 people working out of the company's headquarters at 303 2nd Street in San Francisco, had spent 2.5 years building an automated anomaly detection system specifically designed to flag drivers whose customer complaint patterns deviated from platform medians. The system was internally known as Porch. The acronym stood for nothing official, but a senior data scientist on the team had named it after the place the food was supposed to end up. Porch ran every Sunday night at 3 a.m. Pacific time. It cross-referenced every did not receive complaint filed in the previous 7 days against the assigned Dasher, and it flagged any driver whose complaint rate exceeded the median by more than 20 times in any single week. Most drivers flagged by Porch had legitimate explanations. A driver working a complex with one address visible from the street and 40 more hidden behind it. A driver whose delivery bag had been stolen out of his car at a gas station. A new driver who had not yet figured out which apartments meant which buildings. The fraud team's job was to differentiate these explanations from the small, persistent fraction of drivers who were stealing. On the morning of Monday, the 9th of October, 2023, a fraud analyst named Priya Venkatesan, sitting at her desk at the San Francisco headquarters, opened Porch's weekly report. The top of the list, in bold red text, showed a Dasher in the Charlotte, North Carolina market with 14 did not receive complaints in the previous 7 days against 53 completed deliveries. A complaint rate of 26.4%, 88 times the platform median. Venkatesan opened the driver profile. Daquan Jamal Webster, 18 months on the platform. Customer rating 4.81, only slightly dropped from his earlier 4.86, because most customers who never received their food never bothered to leave a rating, just opened a ticket. Acceptance rate 93%. On-time delivery 96%. Completion rate 100%. Every single delivery he had ever accepted, the system thought, had been completed. Every single one. She pulled his historical complaint rate over the past 8 months. The previous 18 months had shown a rate consistent with platform median, 0.2%. Then, beginning in late February, the rate had begun to climb. March, 2%. April, 4%. By August, it had stabilized at approximately 11%. Where the median Dasher generated 3 complaints per 1,000 deliveries, Webster was generating 110. She pulled the GPS history. She pulled the delivery confirmation photographs. She lined them up across her monitor. 47 photographs of brown paper bags on 47 different surfaces. Asphalt, brick walls, wooden steps, concrete walkways. None of them matched the front doors that the corresponding customers, in their subsequent complaint tickets, had described as their own. One photograph showed what appeared to be the same patch of cracked asphalt that had appeared in 3 other photographs from 3 different deliveries on 3 different nights, 2 of them in neighborhoods on opposite ends of the city. She escalated the case to her supervisor at 12:17 p.m. Pacific Time on a Monday. By Tuesday morning, the case had been referred to DoorDash's external fraud counsel, a Charlotte-based firm called Robinson Bradshaw, which in turn contacted the Financial Crimes Unit of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. A detective named Adrian Coltrane was assigned to the case on Thursday morning. By Friday afternoon, Coltrane had a folder on his desk containing 204 complaint records, 8 months of GPS history, 673 delivery confirmation photographs, and Daquan Webster's home address. Detective Adrian Coltrane was 46 years old, 16 years on the force, with the last 7 assigned to financial crimes. He had spent the bulk of his career working credit card, skimming rings out of gas stations on Wilkinson Boulevard, and elder fraud out of nursing homes in Matthews. He had never worked a DoorDash case before. He spent the first 3 days of his investigation simply mapping what Webster had done. The pattern, once visualized, was unmistakable. Coltrane plotted Webster's GPS pings against the addresses of the 204 complaining customers. In 191 of the 204 cases, Webster's phone had stopped within a quarter mile of the customer's address, close enough to satisfy the app's automated check, but had remained in motion or stationary in a location inconsistent with actually approaching the door. In 37 of those cases, his phone had stopped in the parking lot of a commercial building near the customer's residence. A Walgreens, a Bojangles, a C.V.S., a Family Dollar. In another 46, his phone had pulled briefly into the correct apartment complex and then exited within 45 seconds, far too quickly for him to have actually walked food to a unit. The Facebook Marketplace account was the second piece. Coltrane sent a subpoena to Meta on the 14th of October. He had the records back within 9 days. The account under the name M. Sanders had been created in early March of 2023, 12 days after the first stolen order. The account had sold 143 food items between March and October, all of them listed as, quote, extra catering food, must go tonight. The buyers had paid cash on pickup at a Citgo station at the corner of Eastway Drive and the Plaza. The listings included photographs of the food that, when compared against the DoorDash order records, matched specific stolen deliveries on specific dates within minutes of the original pickup time. The garage was the third. A neighbor across the street from the Galloway Avenue townhouse, a retired postal worker named Wilbur Henley, had called Coltrane after the detective's officers had begun visiting the neighborhood in plain clothes, asking general questions. Henley told the detective that his neighbor Daquan had been keeping a, quote, unusual amount of fast food bags in his garage, that he had seen Daquan loading trash bags of styrofoam containers into the back of his Sentra on Thursday nights for at least 6 months, and that there was, quote, something that didn't smell right about it, but he had figured it was none of his business. Coltrane requested cell tower records from Verizon. The records confirmed the GPS pattern. Webster's phone, on dozens of evenings, had pinged the same tower at the same time as the Citgo station where the Facebook Marketplace pickups had occurred, often within 30 minutes of a stolen delivery being marked complete. And then, on the 28th of October, the smoking gun. Coltrane had asked Priya Venkatesan to pull every single delivery confirmation photograph Webster had ever uploaded across his 18 months on the platform. 6,041 photographs. He sat in his office on a Saturday morning with the photographs displayed in chronological order on a 43-inch monitor, and he scrolled. Around the 423rd confirmed delivery, his rhythm broke. He scrolled back. He scrolled forward. He cross-referenced against the complaint records. In one specific photograph, dated the 18th of May, 2023, taken at 7:41 p.m., and uploaded as proof of delivery to a customer on Sardis Road, the brown paper bag of food was sitting on a section of cracked asphalt with a distinctive yellow paint line. Coltrane recognized the asphalt. He had seen it in another photograph 6 minutes earlier in his scroll, a delivery dated 4 days prior, supposedly delivered to a customer on Idlewild Road 6 miles away. Same cracked asphalt, same yellow paint line, same brown paper bag on the same parking lot, 4 days apart, used as proof of 2 entirely different completed deliveries to 2 entirely different customers. The parking lot turned out to be the Walgreens at Eastway Drive and Central Avenue. The same Walgreens Webster had pulled into on the first stolen order in February. He had been taking the same photograph in the same parking lot for 8 months. He had not even bothered to vary the angle. At 6:47 a.m. on the morning of Thursday, the 2nd of November, 2023, Detective Adrian Coltrane, accompanied by 2 uniformed officers, knocked on the front door of the townhouse at 2217 Galloway Avenue. The Sentra was parked in the driveway. The porch light was off. Inside the house, Ashanti Burgess was in the upstairs bathroom, getting ready for an early shift at the dental practice. Layla was asleep in her bedroom. Daquan Webster, in a gray t-shirt and sweatpants, came down the stairs holding a mug of coffee and opened the door. The conversation, captured on Coltrane's body-worn camera, lasted 4 minutes and 11 seconds before the handcuffs came out. Detective Coltrane. Mr. Webster, I'm Detective Adrian Coltrane with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police. Are you Daquan Webster? Daquan Webster. Yeah. What's this about? Detective Coltrane. We have a few questions for you about your work with DoorDash. We've been speaking with their fraud team. Mind if we come in? Daquan Webster. My daughter's asleep. Can we do this out here? Detective Coltrane. That's fine. Mr. Webster, in the last 8 months, DoorDash has logged 204 customer complaints that the food assigned to your deliveries never arrived. Can you tell me about that? Daquan Webster. I don't know about all that. I deliver the food. Sometimes customers, they lie to get free food. Everybody knows that's a thing. Detective Coltrane. 204 times? Daquan Webster. That's their system. That's not me. Detective Coltrane. Sir, we have GPS records placing your phone in commercial parking lots, Walgreens, Bojangles, CVS, instead of at the customer addresses on the orders. We have delivery confirmation photographs that you reused across multiple deliveries to multiple customers on different nights. We have a Facebook Marketplace account in the name M. Sanders that was selling stolen food on the same nights the complaints came in. We have cell tower records placing you at a sit-go on Eastway Drive within 30 minutes of more than 100 confirmed thefts. Mr. Webster, we have your garage. Daquan Webster. I want to talk to a lawyer, Detective Coltrane. That's your right. Daquan Webster, you are under arrest. Please turn around and place your hands behind your back. Those were the last words Daquan Webster spoke to law enforcement before his attorney arrived at the Mecklenburg County Jail 7 hours later. Daquan Jamal Webster was indicted by a Mecklenburg County grand jury on the 14th of November, 2023, on 3 principal charges: felony larceny by trick under North Carolina, General Statutes, Section 14-72, obtaining property by false pretenses under Section 14-100, and computer fraud under Section 14-453.2. along with 17 additional counts related to specific named victims. The total exposure on the indictment as filed was 20 years in the North Carolina Department of Corrections. His defense attorney was a Charlotte solo practitioner named Roland Pemberton, who had been retained at a reduced rate after Ashanti contacted a community legal aid network. Pemberton's strategy from the first meeting was straightforward. There was no fighting the evidence. The GPS records, the photographs, the marketplace account, the cell tower data. It was, in Pemberton's words to Webster, across the visiting room table at the Mecklenburg County Jail, the most thoroughly documented case of digital larceny he had ever seen. The strategy would be cooperation, restitution, and a guilty plea in exchange for the prosecution's recommendation of a downward departure from the structured sentencing guidelines. The assistant district attorney handling the case for Mecklenburg County was a woman named Tessa Crowder. Crowder had been with the office for 9 years. She had 3 small children. She had, like most people in Charlotte, ordered DoorDash herself dozens of times. She agreed to a plea deal in late January of 2024. Webster would plead guilty to 1 consolidated count of obtaining property by false pretenses and 1 count of computer fraud, with the remaining charges dismissed. He would pay restitution in the full amount of $48,412 to DoorDash. He would receive an active sentence of 15 to 27 months in the North Carolina Department of Corrections, followed by 36 months of supervised probation. Sentencing was held on the 11th of March, 2024, in courtroom 4350 of the Mecklenburg County Courthouse, before the Honorable Vincent Hargrove. 3 victims spoke at the hearing. The first was Curtis Huang, the software engineer who had been Webster's first stolen order. Huang said he was not there for the money. DoorDash had refunded him on every occasion he had been a victim, and he had not even known until contacted by the police that he had been a victim more than once. He said he was there because, quote, "The trust we extend to the people who bring us food in our homes is a small trust, but it is real, and when it is broken, all of us pay for it in higher prices and harder rules for the honest drivers who are still doing this work the right way." The second was a woman named Geneva Mitchum, a 62-year-old retiree with limited mobility who had ordered DoorDash 3 times during a stretch when Webster had stolen all 3 of her meals. She said she had skipped dinner twice rather than wait for the replacement order, because by the time the second one had been promised, she had taken her evening pain medication and could no longer be sure she would wake up to answer the door. The third was a DoorDash regional fraud manager named Avery Knox, who flew in from Atlanta. Knox said that Webster's case had, in addition to the direct financial loss to the company, materially affected the platform's leave-at-door policy across the Southeast region. New verification steps had been added in 5 markets, including a randomized requirement that drivers photograph specific elements of the customer's actual door: a house number, a doormat, a porch light fixture. Honest drivers, Knox said, were now spending an additional 20 to 40 seconds on each delivery because of what one driver in Charlotte had done. Judge Hargrove's sentencing statement ran 6 minutes. The most quoted portion appeared in the next day's Charlotte Observer. Quote, "Mr. Webster, you are not a hardened criminal. You are a young man who came into this courtroom with a clean record, a child at home, a partner who loves you, and a mother in remission. The court has read the letters submitted on your behalf, and I do not doubt that the people who wrote them know a version of you that is decent and that is good. But the court is not sentencing you for the version of you those people know. The court is sentencing you for the version of you who, on 204 separate evenings, decided that the easiest path through your problems ran straight through the trust of 200 strangers. The harm you caused was small to each one. It was vast in aggregate. The fact that no single victim was destroyed by your conduct does not mean that you did not destroy something. You destroyed a small and ordinary trust that 2 million people in this country extend to a driver every single day." End quote. Webster was transported that afternoon to the Piedmont Correctional Institution in Salisbury, North Carolina, a medium security facility approximately 45 minutes north of Charlotte. His earliest release date was set for June of 2025. The Nissan Sentra was sold by Ashanti for $2,800 to help cover Pemberton's remaining fee. The townhouse on Galloway Avenue was vacated at the end of the lease. Ashanti and Layla moved back in with Renee Webster on Tom Hunter Road, into the same apartment complex where Daquan had once mowed lawns for $15 a yard. DoorDash's porch system, as of the most recent public disclosure from the company, now runs nightly instead of weekly. The platform median did not receive complaint rate. 2 years on remains 0.3%. The honor system still holds for 99.7% of the 2 million drivers on the road on any given night. The other 0.3% are flagged faster now, because of one Dasher in Charlotte who took the same photograph in the same parking lot for 204 deliveries and thought no one was counting. Someone was always counting. This case was small in dollars and huge in scale. 200 ordinary people whose dinner just never showed up. But the case on your screen right now, it involves a driver who was doing something far, far worse than stealing food. Click it.